Welcome to the video, everyone. My name is Josh Cottle, and in today's video, I'm going to be doing a settings guide for iRacing. Settings are pretty important to have correctly, because if you get comfortable with using something wrong, you could be at a major disadvantage. And towards the end of the video, I'm also going to show my MOZA R9 settings and my Heusinkveld sprint settings as well. These are the settings that I've been personally running for the last 6 years on iRacing, and these are what I'm comfortable with. But remember, the settings that I personally like might not be what you like, so if you want to try adjusting them to your driving style, I definitely suggest doing that. And remember, the graphic settings that I use might not work for you because I use what works for my computer, but I'll try to have the specs down in the comments below so you can see if you have any different specs. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get on to the video. Alright y'all, for this settings video, I'm going to try to go page by page and show like examples of why I run the settings that I do. Personally, these are the settings that work best for me, but remember, each wheel and pedal combo is different, and you might like something a little bit different than I do. But this is just what I personally use. Starting with force feedback, I've always ran my force feedback kind of lower on like the lower end. For oval cars, I typically like around 3 to 6. This is just what feels comfortable. I don't like a lot of force feedback because when you get too high, I feel like you almost lose control of your car. So I like to run a little bit lower. And some guys even run 0 with Logitech wheels. I personally don't like that. That feels a little weird to me. I like around 3 to 6. But for road course racing, I will go up just so I can have a little bit more feeling in my car and, be able to catch a car if it's sideways. But for oval racing, I run around the lower end. Intensity, I've never personally changed. Wheel range and map range, I like to keep these at 900. This is just what's suggested for my wheel. Some wheels will suggest 1080. I'm not sure if there's any other ones out there, but typically run what your manufacturer wants you to run. Some people for super speedway racing will run like 300. I do not like that. It feels weird, especially when you get sideways. They do it so you can catch the car faster, but I'm not a fan, so I don't suggest running that. Just run what your wheel suggests running. For brakes, I have load cell on because I have Heusinkveld sprint pedals, but if you don't have load cell pedals, do not have this on. I just do it because I have load cell. Force factors default. Max range I have at 100% just for oval stuff. But I do know a lot of pros with like certain road cars, they'll go down to like whatever the maximum is, like 85. I don't personally do that. I like to have, full control of my brake pedal, but I do know some pros that change that. I don't change any of these settings. These are my cockpit controls. These are all preference for my wheel, but these are the settings I use. Driving aids, I'm going to mention a few of them. Like anti-stall clutch, I personally use that. That's just, the default option. I feel comfortable with that. But I also want to mention driving line. I definitely think you should have this off. Unless you're a rookie and you're trying to learn a track for the first time. But if you get comfortable at a track, definitely turn this off because you need to start like relying on actual brake markers versus the driving line. So I definitely suggest turning this off. These are my driver view settings. I personally change these based on the car. So for instance, like some road cars, I'll raise this up so I can see the curbs a little bit better. And then some oval cars, I'll turn this down because you don't really need to like see. It just depends on the height of the car. Field of view, I run 165 because I have triple monitors. I'll go over that in a little bit. But for me, I like to have my field of view based on what it like feels comfortable to me. A lot of people run a lot less than this, and a lot of people run a lot more than this. I don't like being too far back in my seat because it feels like too much is going on, if that makes sense. So I like to keep it kind of in a comfortable middle zone for me. Shift horizon I have at 3. I've had this for a long time. These two I've never changed, pitch and roll. Neck motion is kind of a weird setting that a lot of people will change for road course racing. I found my sweet spot to be 85 to 100. That's just what feels comfortable for me. But I know a lot of people will run lower. Especially if you're on a motion rig, you basically don't want to run any because motion rigs, you kind of, shake around with the actual rig. I don't change any of this stuff. Wheel and force feedback, these are, like I said, my force feedback settings. I don't change any of these 4 down here. These are just kind of default. This is what I'm comfortable with. Wheel LFE. This is kind of a newer setting for my wheel I have. I don't know of anybody that personally uses this. If there is, a reason to try it, let me know down in the comments, because I personally don't. I don't know of any pro that uses these settings. They all just use the default force feedback. But if you want to try it, give it a try. I've never used it, so I'm not really positive on it. Pedal force feedback. This is like where your pedals will vibrate based on what's going on in the car. I know a lot of people that actually really like this setting. I personally don't. My new pedals that I have do not have this feature, but I used to run V3s back in the day, and I still didn't like it back then. It just feels kind of uncomfortable for me, but if you're a real life racer, this setting might be really good for you. All this is default. I've never personally changed this. Going over to keybinds, a lot of this is preference for your wheel, and I'll go over a few settings that you definitely need to have bound to your wheel. All these are kind of just default, what feels good for my wheel. Make sure you have these two bound to your wheel if you can. The reason I have it is if you don't have it bound, you have to use your F keys and reaching over to your keyboard and having to like search just to change like your brake bias or something, or see your relative box. It gets really annoying, so I definitely suggest having this bound to your wheel. Make sure you have a spotter damage report. This will be really helpful, especially if you get damage and you're not sure if you need a pit or not. Definitely have this bound. Brake bias set, definitely have a button for this if you don't have one already. Brake bias is really important, especially for oval racing, but you can also use it like a little bit for road racing to help. Definitely have this one bound. This is a really good feature. Interface is fully preference. I'm not going to go over too much in here. I'll just make sure to show like what I have it at. Going over to display, like I said, I have triple monitors, so I'm 5760 by 1080. But if I were on like my normal settings, it'd be 1920 by 1080. I don't use any of these resolution scaling. I've never have. Full screen and border, I personally have both of these off, so I'm window borderless mode. For triples, this is a must-have, because if you tab out while you're in triples, it'll like mess with your settings completely in your files, and the only way to fix them is like exit out of the sim, go to your files, and reset everything. It's not fun, so just make sure you have these two off if you're on triple monitors. Gamma, brightness, and contrast, these are just preference. I like a little less gamma because of my monitors. Here's my monitor settings that I have. Like I said, 3 flat screens for my triples. I personally don't use the field of view calculator. I personally like to have it set to my preference rather than what it tells me to set it to. But everybody's different. I don't have a VR, so these are just default. Now going over to my graphics settings, which is a very popular topic with iRacing. On this left side, this is all my settings for in-sim, and on the right is for replay, so I'll just be going over on the left side. I personally set mine up to like have at least a decent look to it, but I also want to get as much frame rate as possible. So sky and cloud and cars I have on low. Hit objects I have on medium. Event I have on off. This is kind of like stuff that happens in the background of races. I don't personally need to see like certain stuff. Grandstands I have on high. This is kind of a weird setting. Personally, for oval racing, some tracks like Bristol, Daytona, like random stuff will be floating in the air if you have grandstands off. So I like to have it on. It just looks better, and it doesn't have these weird floating objects in the background. So that's why I run it. But if you want a little bit more FPS, I'd turn this off or even on low. Crowds I have on off. I don't really see a reason to have crowds. Objects off, foliage off, 2-pass trees off, high quality trees off. Steering wheel I personally have on off, but for some road cars I'll have on show. This is all preference. There's nothing really to gain, but for like certain road cars, they have, LEDs so you can see when you need a shift. I personally would use that for, or even on static for road course racing, but that's just preference. Height obstructions all. Headlight details medium. Cockpit mirrors I have on 2 because I can handle it with my computer, but it is a high CPU usage graphics setting, so if you're struggling with frame rate, make sure you have these off. Higher detail and mirrors I personally have off. Headlight on track and mirrors I have on. Virtual mirror I have on. I believe these are just default. Virtual mirror FOV is actually something a lot of people will change. I like mine on 120. It's just what's comfortable, but some people have it set like to a certain FOV so they can like see where people are around the track. I personally don't change it. I just keep it on default. Max cars is a huge CPU setting, so make sure you set this like based on your system's performance. I personally have mine on 30. It's just what works for me. I'll even go up sometimes, but like for endurance racing with a lot of cars on track, this can really help you save some frame rate. Draw cars and draw pits I personally have on default. I've never personally changed this. I know a lot of pros that will, but this is just what works for my computer. High car numbers, make sure you have this on if you have like trading paints, so you can see people's custom paints. These 3 settings I believe are just default for me. I haven't really changed these. Shader quality is a big graphic setting as well for frame rate. Personally, I have mine on high because my computer can handle it. But if you want a little bit more frame rate, you could go on lower, but to me, it just makes the sim look kind of bad. I personally like mine on high. It just looks really well. HDR, I personally have off. To me, all it does is just put the sun on your screen, and that can be really bright and like blind you almost. I know a lot of people that personally use this setting. I personally don't, but it's just up to you. Particle details and full resolution I have on high and on. That's just default, I believe. Shadow maps I have on off. Night shadow maps I have on off. Walls I have off. Shadow map filter I have on PC F4, and number of lights is 3. I believe this is just all default. Motion blur I have on off, and then all these on off. I don't like any of the post-processing effects personally, and this can save you some frame rate. High rain, and then 0-0. Anti-aliasing is another graphic setting that can really affect your frame rate. Personally, I run MSAA, the highest option, because my computer can handle it. But if you want a little bit more performance, definitely go down. Frame rate, I have it limited at 160. Just set it to whatever your monitor hertz is, because if it goes over that, you won't see a difference. NVIDIA Reflex, I have on boost. I don't think there's really a big difference with this. I just want as little input delay as possible. Then I have these 2 settings on, which I believe is default. Going over to audio settings, this is my settings for my Astro A50s. You might have a different headset than me, and these might sound bad, so definitely give it a shot and just try your own settings out. But going over a couple settings that you need to have up, you need to have tire audio up, which I mentioned in a previous video. This can be a really helpful tool to like hear your tires sliding, and you can help you save tires for like long run pace. And then I also have crashes up, but this is more for setup building. You can hear if your car's hitting the track. Ambient I have on down because it just kind of gets annoying if you're sitting in your replay and all you hear is like the background audio. These I have on default. This is my AI spotter settings. I personally like to have mine a little higher so I can hear it. Some people don't use it. I do because it's good for oval racing. I personally just use the default pack, but I know a lot of people will change these, and some people for oval racing use the Jimmy Johnson Cuz pack. I just like the default. It's just pretty easy. Like I said, make sure you have your spotter damage report bound. And I believe that's it for my iRacing settings. So now I'm going to show you my MOZA R9 settings that I use and my Heusinkveld sprint pedal settings that I use. Now going over to my MOZA settings, these are what I use personally. I've used these since I've had this wheel. A lot of people will change these. I personally don't. This is just what I'm comfortable with. And now finally, this is my Heusinkveld settings that I personally use. I run a slow start on my throttle pedal for certain oval cars, but most of the time I'll just run linear. And these are all the settings that I use for iRacing. If you guys have any questions or need any help, let me know down in the comments below and I'll try to answer it back as fast as possible. But if you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!